there's no way I could have been making YouTube videos as long as I have and making music as long as I have if I didn't love doing it.
We have a special guest this week, Andrew Southworth.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrew Southworth. I'm a music artist, musician, vocalist, producer, and I also run a YouTube channel and an online business called Genera Studios. And so I do a few different things aside from like making music, being an artist. I also I kind of built this YouTube channel and this business around helping other artists get their music out there. And so my company I started is called Genera Studios. And so I do courses, I do consultations. And then I also do sample packs, although I haven't really done the sample pack stuff in a little while just because the music marketing stuff just started consuming my life. But kind of all the journey of being a small business owner, I guess.
So what state are you from?
I'm in Massachusetts.
You're in Massachusetts. Okay. And where did you get your passion or drive for making music?
Oh, man. Well, I've been doing music for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was 12, I started learning how to play guitar. Mm-hmm. And it's because at the time, my parents were going through a divorce and my mom thought it would be a good kind of distraction. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be a very good distraction and it consumed my entire life.
Now, what was that one record or song that you heard back at 12 years old that made you say like, I want to pick up a guitar?
So it was actually, I think it was either 5th or 6th grade. There was a friend of mine in school was like guitar was the only thing he ever did. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't actually like a piece of music or anything. It was pretty much that I had a friend who had played guitar. And at some point in school, he brought it in and like played in front of the class or something. And I literally knew nothing about guitar. I didn't even know that the way you changed pitch on a guitar was by pressing in frets. Like I knew absolutely nothing. Now at the time I was listening to a lot of, I think Linkin Park mm-hmm. was my favorite band at that time. And also Marilyn Manson. Mm-hmm. And I think I was listening to a little bit of like Eminem.
Okay.
I think that was, I don't know if I have the dates wrong, but around, I guess that'd be like 2003 or something.
Got you. So that was around the real Slim Shady.
Yeah. And yeah. And then it was also around like Linkin Park's either Meteora or Hybrid Theory.
Okay.
So that was kind of the stuff I was big into when I started playing guitar, but it was all kind of started just by having a friend who guitar was his entire existence.
Got you. So to dig a little deeper, at what point in playing the guitar did you actually just get lost in time?
So I was taking lessons for the first year at the local music shop, and I found consistently that every time I would go back to the weekly lesson, I not only would do all the practice and lessons that he showed me to do, I would have gotten like weeks ahead. And so the teacher was always like, oh, okay, so you didn't just do this one thing I did you did that one thing, you skipped way ahead in this book we're working on, and you learned all these other songs. And so that kind of kept happening. And then, a year into it, I was just like, I stopped doing lessons. And I don't know why I stopped doing lessons. It might have just been we couldn't afford to keep doing them at the time. But mm-hmm. we stopped them because I was pretty much teaching, like most of the stuff I was learning was through myself. And so I kind of realized through learning guitar that the whole self-learning thing, mm-hmm. Which I think is super important for anyone to have, is like the ability to teach yourself and motivate yourself. And there was a point in my teenage years where I would play guitar for 6 to 8 hours a day. Wow. And prior to playing guitar, it was video games. I would play video games for 6 to 8 hours a day. Okay. And so the guitar just completely replaced that. And at some point along the way, I started singing because there was a school project, I think 8th grade. So it was probably when I was 15 or so. We had to write a song about we didn't have to write a song. We had to do a presentation in front of the class on some topic related to science. And so you could do like a poster, you could make a short film, or my thing was, okay, I'll write a song about whatever the subject was. And so because of that, I had to figure out how to sing, and I was awful, of course, because everyone, when they start singing, is awful.
Right.
And then that kicked off the whole singing thing.
Just like that. So what did your mom think? Like once she seen you get engrossed in this guitar and starting to sing and picked up this cool hobby, like what was her take on it?
She loved it. She definitely pushed me to kind of get in front of other people a lot. She, growing up, I did a lot of different journeys, but at some point she was like, "Oh, you should play in front of people," and she found some open mic night, which, if anyone doesn't know what an open mic night is, it's just a place where a bunch of different musicians can perform like a couple songs in front of a random group of people at like a coffee shop. And so she was super into it. She loved, bring me to an open mic night or whatever and sitting in the crowd and be like, "Yo, that's my son." So she was super supportive, which I'm definitely very fortunate. A lot of people don't have that level of support when they're getting into music. But she drove us everywhere. When I started having a band and we would play shows, she would drive us like 45 minutes to play a crappy show in front of 7 people, no problem.
So you're totally invested in this guitar. You've self-taught yourself. You're way ahead of lessons. You are doing open mics. You start a band. Where does school come into the whole play now?
Yeah. So high school, I barely made it through.
Okay.
I've never been the type of person who's good at just doing what you have to do, even if you don't like it, because it's what you're supposed to do. And like I was such a struggle for me. I did great in high school, but I would just never go. And so I remember I almost had to repeat senior year because I had so many absences. But they let me do some summer school thing to do it. And it was really important to me to do that because I had gotten accepted to Berklee College of Music at some point. I don't remember what year that was, but I got accepted for guitar and I was going to focus on music production there. I ended up not going though, because they sent what the bill was, and it was like $60,000 a year, which there was 0% chance actually being able to afford it. And the loans would be insane if I did it. So I ended up just going to a community college at first it was just for nothing. You can just kind of take gen ed classes. Like
liberal arts?
Yeah. So I went to the community college, and at first, like, I was thinking maybe I'll do business or something that seems kind of a generally useful skill. And then after the first semester, I was like, this seems stupid. It just felt like something I could learn myself. And so I was really getting into like NASA at the time. Like I loved learning everything about space and astronomy and everything NASA related. And so I was like, okay, well, how about I go to school for mechanical engineering? And so that's what I started at the community college. Did 2 years there, got an associate's, went to the local university, 4 more years there, bachelor's, and then started working as a mechanical engineer. 2 more years, night school, master's.
Right.
And that was my whole college experience.
So where's the guitar in these 6 years?
It definitely took a back seat for, like, it was still a big part of my life in community college, but as like undergrad school started like getting harder and harder, it started becoming more and more of a backseat. Gotcha. And there was probably like the second half of my undergrad, music became this super like thing that I still did like regularly, but it wasn't anything that I was actively improving or trying to write better songs or whatever. And the kind of thing with me going to school for engineering, because like it was kind of a defeat to like get accepted to a music school like Berklee and then go for engineering. And so my one of my kind of thoughts at the time was, well, if I go to school for this thing pays really well, so I'll have enough money to do whatever I want to do musically for the rest of my life.
Yep.
And so after I started working full time and I was doing night classes, I was working 40 hours a week as an engineer, and I was doing 2 to 3 grad classes a night.
Wow. For
2 years. So it was like 60, 70 hours a week. Right. And for 2 years, and I kind of adapted to that. So as soon as I got my graduate degree I think I got it in 2018. but the last semester was kind of light. I was like, well, I just gained 30 hours a week of my life back. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do everything I can in music again.
Got you. So during the whole time that you're in school, like, what does your mom think? Like what is she saying about this?
I mean, she was super supportive with me being in school for engineering.
Okay.
Yeah. She was like, as long as you're doing what you want to do, she's on board.
So you talk about the guitar, but for those of you who can't see this because you're listening to the podcast, he has a bunch of gear in his space. Where do you learn about all this equipment, and when do you get into DAWs? Like when does all that come into play?
Yeah. So when I was about 18, I started actually like recording from home. Okay. Prior to that, any recordings of me were either done on like a handheld device and they were awful, or they were, I think I did a couple things at like a local person's house. Wasn't even like a home studio. It was like super, like, you wouldn't even call it a studio. It was so limited. But 18, I got an iMac, and I got a M Audio, like some super cheap interface, and I had some microphones. And so I started learning about recording then. Now, most of my music history in bands was like rock and metal. So at the time, like 18 is when I started doing some home recordings. And in fact, the way my YouTube channel started was screaming lessons.
I did read that. I'm like, but I don't ever hear him screaming. So
yeah, that was like my first 5,000 subscribers on my channel were just me teaching how to scream metal music. But so that was kind of the start of the recording and the gear. And just throughout the years, being a person that records, I would just acquire random little stuff, like some kind of guitar effects pedal, or I'd upgrade my audio interface to a Scarlett 2i2. It's like a super popular interface. And so that was a lot of that. None of this stuff that, if anyone's watching the video, can see all this gear behind me. A lot of this stuff was acquired starting around 2017, 2018, when I was wrapping up school, but I was working as an engineer. So I was making more money than I ever had in my life. And I started getting into making electronic music. So prior to that, it was mostly rock and metal. But I started playing with synthesizers, just software at first, inside of Logic Pro, then eventually Ableton Live. And then I started learning about hardware and analog and all this Eurorack modular synth stuff in the background. And then a combination of getting into something new and exciting and having an income that's higher than you're used to for the first time in your life. I just started, if I saw something cool, I wanted to try it, I would just buy it. And if I hated it, I would just sell it on Reverb and then go buy something new.
Got you. So let's fast forward a little bit. What was it like recording, or at what point does your social media start to take up quite a bit of your time in addition to the music itself?
Yeah. So at that same period around 2018, in addition to deciding to double down on music, I decided to double down on YouTube. And at first, and again, I might be off by a year, 2017, 2018, I was like, I'm going to post every week, once a week. And then the next year, I was like, I'm going to post twice a week, every week.
Wow. And,
as I mentioned, I was doing screaming lessons for a lot of my YouTube journey. But at some point, I got bored of that over the years. And just there's only so much you can teach about how to scream, So I was getting bored. And so since I was so much into music production and started to do electronic music, I started making my content around recording and production and gear, stuff like that. And that took me all the way to late 2019, I think, that type of content on my channel. And along the way, I'm posting, music production content on YouTube. I'm posting that same content to my Instagram. And I'm also mixing in like clips of my music on Instagram, mixing in things on my YouTube channel of just like my music uploads. So that was kind of the path for that.
So where do you get your drive from? Because all the things that you mentioned, they take a lot of time, and to produce a quality product takes time. There's editing, there's camera, there's lighting, there's sound. What keeps you going?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer. I think for me, it was that I had just been doing the whole full-time engineer, full-time master's thing for 2 years. And that was so exhausting. I mean, that's why my first album is called Sleepless.
Gotcha.
Because for 2 years, I just got 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. I was just totally just burning the candle at both ends.
Gotcha.
So when that stopped, it's if I had 30 hours a week of extra time to put into it, for me, that wasn't a lot of people think, okay, I work 40 hours a week, you sleep 40 hours a week, so I have 40 hours a week of free time. But when you've already been working 70 hours a week, 40 on your job and then 30 on your school, for me, that wasn't 30 extra hours. That was just hours that I gained back that now I could spend again.
Right.
And so it was just a matter of kind of continuing what I already kind of forced myself to do. And then it was also, a big part of it is just you have to like what you're doing.
Right.
There's no way I could have done a master's degree while working full time if I didn't like the field I was working in. There's no way I could have been making YouTube videos as long as I have and making music as long as I have if I didn't love doing it. Most people don't realize is if you're getting 90% rejections, you're actually doing average.
So if you
submit to 100 people and 90 reject you, you're doing okay. And a lot of artists, when they see a 90% acceptance rate, they assume either the platform's rigged or they suck.
But in talking about rejection, where do you get, again, same question comes back, that 90% rejection rate? Why do you continue to push forward? Why didn't you just cave back in and say, I suck as an artist?
I guess my general life, thought process is you've only ever really failed if you quit. So if I get a bunch of rejection or things aren't going well, it's well, of course, you're gonna, before you win at anything, you're gonna fail a lot more. No giant corporation that exists today was ever someone's first attempt, right?
Right.
And I think Mark Zuckerberg or something said before Facebook he had 10 failed companies or something, and for most people it's the same. And so it's hard, obviously, getting rejection and failing, but one of the only ways you really ever learn is by failing. And most of the things you do they're not going to be raging successes. You're just going to take it as a learning experience. And so with pitching to curators, when you get 90% acceptance or rejections, you just got to either think well, why is this? Is it because the song's bad? Maybe that's true, right? The song can just be worse than your other songs. Or two, is it just not a song that fits as well in a playlist? And, at the end of the day, I guess it kind of doesn't matter, but it's kind of good to think about and think of well, if playlisting is a super important part of your strategy, well, then maybe you should be tailoring your stuff more to be able to fit on some playlists and find the right ones.
Right.
But if you aren't relying on playlists, well, it's okay, well, maybe for this style of music, playlisting isn't the best approach. And honestly, for I have a few projects for my alternative metal band, playlisting is just not an option. There's 2 playlists on Submit Hub for a genre.
Gotcha.
And they're both very picky.
Right,
So,
right.
it's not the only thing in the world. There's a lot more other ways to push your music than Submit Hub.
So you've evolved as an artist a few times. Last question. Tell us about your creative process. Where do you draw that creative inspiration from? Yeah.
Generally, I feel most of my songs start off with either, this is kind of cliche almost, but you're walking around your house, you're in the shower, you're driving your car home, and just a little melody pops in your head, or a lyric pops in your head, or a guitar riff pops in your head. And then you desperately try to make sure you don't forget it. I either pull out my iPhone and I hum it in the phone, or I'll rush to my computer and start getting some stuff down. And then that's usually how most of my songs start, just a random little bit of inspiration. And a lot of like my songs lyrically and story wise, and I guess theming, will revolve more so around stories and like television and movies than they will revolve around personal life experiences.
Gotcha.
And I've never been the type of person to write like a love song or something. I've always found that to be so cheesy. And so a lot of my, like the song that I just released, Black Hole, is it's inspired by the TV show Dexter.
Okay. Yep.
Like, and there's that whole push and pull of the TV show where, I don't know if, have you ever seen it, Dexter?
I've seen a few episodes. Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Yeah, it's very dark. And the main character is a serial killer, but he's the good guy in the show. And he's dating this woman who's like emotionally damaged because he feels like it helps him kind of hide his darkness, because she's kind of dark because of things that have happened to her, and he's kind of taking advantage of that to help him stay hidden. And so it's a super dark story, right? But things like that tend to inspire me more than like certain life events. And sometimes songs end up being about a life thing. But a lot of times I'm inspired by movies, TV shows, or just like esoteric thoughts on my beliefs of the world, or politics, of course, life events.
Absolutely.
All that stuff.
So what is one of your favorite books to read, or that you have read?
Ooh. I mean, when it comes to fiction, my favorite series is probably The Expanse.
Okay.
When it comes to nonfiction, man, I wish I still had my bookshelf in this room because I could just look at it and remember the books that I read. I really liked, and I mean, this definitely isn't my favorite, but I remember reading the Russell Brunson books.
Okay.
On there was, what are they called? Not Traffic Secrets. I actually didn't like that one that much, but Expert Secrets, and the one before that, .com Secrets.
I just read both of those. Yeah.
they're like not necessarily, I mean, they're not like entertaining books per se, but like business wise, they're really like, they can kind of change your life. And it kind of sounds kind of stupid because at the end of the day, they're books written by Russell Brunson to sell you something, right? Like the whole purpose of that book is to get you to pay $99 a month for ClickFunnels.
Yeah, but the way that he executes the stories, and he just does it over and over, it draws you in.
Yeah.
Right. I remember there was a story in there, correct me if I'm wrong, when he was talking about being a wrestler in high school, and the guy was like, "Look, you're messing up on the wrestling team. Look at this cassette." And he goes into his wallet and he says, "Give me your money." He takes all his money. He's like, "What are you going to do?" And he's like, "Unless you pay for something, you're not going to pay attention." Right.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've learned to be true with information that you give to people. You can give everything on YouTube, like everything what to do. And most people don't have the patience to sit all the way through it. Right.
Yeah.
But the minute that you attach that dollar to it, it's sort of like, I better watch this because I don't want to lose my money.
Yeah. Honestly, like when I started doing consulting for other artists, when I first started, I charged way less than I charge now. And part of that's just natural supply and demand. Right. But the other part of it is like, you do realize over time, as you raise your prices, that you actually start getting better clients. Absolutely. And I don't want to tell anyone that they're not as good as someone else. But when I say better, I mean, they're going to take what I say more seriously. They're going to be taking notes. They're going to be making sure to record the call or whatever and actually implement it. Whereas, if I charge someone half the price, usually, so I have had people I give a discount, or I've cut a break in the past because I want to help them out, and they don't usually do as well as the people who pay the whole thing. And it kind of sucks in a way, because it's like why would people do this to themselves? Why would you not like just take advantage of free content and do well? But it's like just human nature. You're not going to take something seriously unless you have some skin in the game.
That's it. I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been very inspirational to hear your story. Again, you are a huge inspiration to me in my musical journey in the past 2 years as a hip hop artist. So I don't want people to think like, oh, there isn't some overlap here. The underlying process, right? We share process. There's a process that Andrew can teach you in order for you not to complain that you have 0 listens or streams on your music. There's a process that he has that will help you grow an audience. And if you listen to him and follow him on social media, he pretty much in real time gives you the process as he's doing it. So it's no fluff. It's not hype to get you to get into his course. It's like, hey, I just bought these CDs and I didn't flip them the way I thought. So now I have to figure out how we're going to move this. Right. And then, you know, the next week you'll come up with the process of what you're going to do. And it's just really inspiring to see, because even if a person does not copy that process, you can understand the thought behind it. Like, you just have to think about you can move anything. You just have to figure out how to execute it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you're probably gonna fail a lot along the way.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
That's totally fine. You know, that's why we're here. It's all a process. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast and taking out the time, and me losing my power, you know, and all that good stuff, and putting the wrong link in for Google. And